Sarah Martinez had always preferred the quiet mornings in Millbrook, a small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests in rural Virginia. At 47, she had found peace in the simple rhythm of running her small hardware store, helping neighbors fix broken fence posts, and recommending the right tools for weekend projects. Her days were filled with friendly conversations about weather patterns, local high school football games, and the occasional town council meeting debates about new streetlights. The townspeople knew her as the reliable woman who could fix almost anything and never complained about staying late to help someone in an emergency. She had moved to Millbrook 6 years ago, purchasing the old Henderson hardware store when Mr. Henderson retired. The transition had been smooth, and Sarah quickly became a trusted member of the community. Children waved at her during their bike rides, elderly residents sought her advice on home repairs, and local contractors appreciated her knowledge of quality materials. What the residents of Millbrook didn't know was that Sarah Martinez had spent 29 years serving in the United States Navy as a SEAL. Her official records were classified, buried deep within military databases that few people had clearance to access. The woman who now sold screws and paintbrushes had once conducted covert operations in some of the world's most dangerous locations. She had been trained in advanced combat techniques, underwater demolition, parachute operations, and counter-terrorism strategies that most people only saw in movies. Sarah's decision to retire from military service hadn't been easy. After nearly 3 decades of deployments, classified missions, and constant readiness for combat, she yearned for something different. The transition from military life to civilian existence had been challenging, but Millbrook had provided exactly what she needed: anonymity and peace. She had deliberately chosen a small town where people minded their own business and where her past wouldn't follow her. Her daily routine was deliberately ordinary. She opened the store at 7 in the morning, arranged inventory, helped customers, and closed at 6 in the evening. Evenings were spent reading, maintaining her small garden behind the store, or taking long walks through the nearby forest trails. She had cultivated relationships with her neighbors, but kept conversations focused on present-day matters. When people occasionally asked about her background, she mentioned working in logistics for the Navy, which was technically true but revealed nothing about her actual specialization. The physical evidence of her military background was minimal, but present for those who knew what to look for. Her posture remained impeccably straight. Her situational awareness was exceptional, and her physical fitness was remarkable for someone her age. She could carry heavy inventory without strain, her hands remained steady under pressure, and she possessed an unusual calm during local emergencies. When a water pipe burst at the elementary school during a winter storm, Sarah had quickly organized temporary solutions and coordinated with repair crews with the efficiency of someone accustomed to crisis management. Her small apartment above the hardware store was spartanly furnished but comfortable. The walls displayed landscapes and local photographs rather than military memorabilia. Her personal belongings were minimal and organized with military precision, though she had consciously relaxed some of her more rigid habits to blend into civilian life. The only hint of her past was a small American flag in her bedroom window and a collection of well-worn books about military history and strategy hidden in her bedroom closet. Sarah had maintained her physical conditioning through daily runs and a carefully structured exercise routine, though she was careful not to appear overly athletic to her neighbors. Her runs took her through forest paths where she could move at full speed without attracting attention. She had converted a small storage room in her building's basement into a private workout space, where she maintained her strength training and combat readiness, though she hoped never to need those skills again. The town's isolation had been one of its primary attractions for Sarah. Millbrook was 40 minutes from the nearest highway, surrounded by state forest land, and home to fewer than 3,000 residents. The local police force consisted of 4 officers who primarily dealt with minor disputes, occasional drunk driving incidents, and wildlife problems. The town had never experienced serious crime, and most residents left their doors unlocked and their cars running while they ran quick errands. This peaceful existence had allowed Sarah to decompress from decades of high-stress military operations. She had gradually learned to sleep without weapons within reach, to walk through crowds without constantly scanning for threats, and to engage in casual conversations without analyzing people for potential security risks. The hypervigilance that had kept her alive during countless dangerous missions was slowly fading, replaced by the comfortable rhythms of small-town life. Her customers had come to appreciate her practical knowledge and fair pricing. She never oversold products, always recommended the most cost-effective solutions, and was known for her honesty about which repairs people could handle themselves versus which required professional help. Local contractors particularly valued her expertise in selecting appropriate materials for different projects, and her ability to quickly locate hard-to-find specialty items. The hardware store had become an informal community gathering place, where people shared local news and caught up on neighborhood happenings. Sarah encouraged this social aspect of her business, understanding that community connections were important for both her integration into town life and for the store's success. She had learned the names of regular customers' children and grandchildren, remembered their ongoing home projects, and offered practical advice based on decades of experience with tools and equipment. Her relationship with local law enforcement was cordial but professional. Sheriff Tom Bradley and his deputies occasionally stopped by for supplies or coffee, and Sarah had earned their respect through her helpful attitude and practical problem-solving abilities. When the sheriff's department needed advice on security improvements for the courthouse, Sarah had provided useful recommendations based on her general knowledge of building security, though she was careful not to reveal the depth of her expertise in such matters. The seasonal rhythms of small-town life had become comforting to Sarah. Spring brought customers preparing gardens and planning home improvement projects. Summer meant increased activity as tourists occasionally passed through town and locals worked on outdoor projects. Fall was busy with people preparing for winter, buying supplies for heating system maintenance and emergency preparedness. Winter was quieter, allowing Sarah more time for reading and personal projects. She had established friendships with several townspeople, though she maintained careful boundaries about personal information. Margaret Chen, who owned the local bakery, often brought Sarah fresh bread and pastries. They would discuss gardening techniques and local events while carefully avoiding deeper personal topics. Robert Kim, the town's only physician, occasionally sought her advice on medical equipment maintenance and had become a chess partner during quiet winter evenings. Sarah's integration into community life extended to volunteer activities that utilized her organizational skills without revealing her military background. She had helped coordinate the annual Harvest Festival, served on a committee to improve the town's emergency preparedness procedures, and assisted with youth baseball league logistics. Her contributions were valued because of her efficiency and reliability, qualities that townspeople attributed to a naturally organized personality rather than military training. The financial aspects of her new life were carefully managed. Her military pension provided a stable income that she supplemented with profits from the hardware store. She had been frugal during her military career, saving money that now allowed her to live comfortably without financial stress. The store was profitable but not dramatically so, which suited her desire to maintain a low profile while serving the community's needs. Her few contacts with her former military colleagues were minimal and carefully managed. Occasionally, she received coded messages through secure channels, but these were primarily administrative matters related to her pension or medical benefits. She had deliberately severed most connections to her former life, understanding that maintaining operational security required clean breaks from past associations. The few former colleagues who knew her location respected her desire for privacy and anonymity. Sarah's daily interactions with customers provided ongoing evidence of how successfully she had transitioned to civilian life. People treated her as a helpful neighbor and business owner rather than as someone with an extraordinary military background. Children felt comfortable approaching her with questions about school projects involving construction or repairs. Elderly residents trusted her with keys to their homes when they needed repairs completed while they were away visiting family. The physical demands of running a hardware store were manageable for someone with her conditioning, but Sarah was careful not to demonstrate capabilities that might raise questions. When customers needed help loading heavy items, she provided assistance but made sure to show appropriate effort, rather than making such tasks appear effortless. Her knowledge of tools and equipment was comprehensive, but she presented it as practical experience rather than professional training. Her living space above the store provided privacy and security while maintaining her connection to the community below. She could monitor the street activity and maintain awareness of local happenings without appearing overly watchful. The building's construction was solid, and Sarah had made subtle security improvements that appeared to be routine maintenance and energy efficiency upgrades. The 6 years since her arrival in Millbrook had passed peacefully, with each year strengthening her connections to the community and her confidence in her new identity. She had successfully created a life that provided purpose and satisfaction without the constant dangers and stresses of military service. Her expertise was appreciated and utilized in constructive civilian ways that contributed to community well-being. Local seasonal events had become important markers in Sarah's new life. The annual Memorial Day parade allowed her to honor fallen colleagues while maintaining her civilian persona. Independence Day celebrations provided opportunities to demonstrate community spirit without revealing the depth of her patriotic service. Christmas and Thanksgiving gatherings with neighbors had replaced military mess hall celebrations, offering warmth and connection in civilian contexts. Sarah's success in Millbrook represented more than just a career change. It demonstrated the possibility of complete life transformation while maintaining core values and contributing meaningfully to society. Her skills and experience continued to serve others, but in ways that built rather than destroyed, that protected community well-being rather than eliminating threats. The transition had taken years to complete, but by her 6th year in Millbrook, Sarah Martinez had truly become the person she appeared to be. A valued community member whose past enhanced her present contributions without defining or limiting her future possibilities. This carefully constructed new life was about to face an unprecedented challenge that would test everything Sarah had built and force her to confront the reality that some aspects of her past could never be completely left behind. The morning of October 15th started like any other Tuesday in Millbrook. Sarah arrived at her hardware store at 6:30 minutes before her official opening time, to organize inventory and prepare for the day ahead. The weather forecast predicted clear skies and mild temperatures, perfect for the outdoor projects that kept her business steady during the autumn season. She had several customers expecting special orders to arrive, and Mrs. Patterson needed advice about winterizing her garden tool shed before the first frost. At 8:15, while Sarah was helping Jake Morrison select appropriate screws for his deck repair project, she noticed an unusual amount of activity on Main Street. 3 black SUVs with tinted windows had parked near the town square, and several men in dark suits were walking purposefully between the vehicles and the municipal building. Her situational awareness, honed by decades of military training, immediately registered these details as potentially significant. Though she maintained her casual conversation with Jake about weather-resistant hardware options, the men in suits were not locals, and their behavior patterns suggested law enforcement or military backgrounds. Their positioning around the vehicles indicated security protocols, and their communication appeared to involve earpieces and coordinated movements. Sarah continued serving customers while discreetly observing the activity, noting that the visitors seemed to be conducting some form of official business rather than simply passing through town. By 9 o'clock, the unusual activity had attracted attention from other townspeople. Margaret Chen from the bakery had stepped outside to observe the visitors, and several customers in Sarah's store were speculating about their purpose. The general assumption was that federal agents were investigating some kind of tax issue or conducting routine inspections of local businesses. Millbrook rarely attracted outside official attention, so any government presence was noteworthy for residents. Sarah's military experience allowed her to recognize details that civilians might miss. The visitors' vehicle positioning suggested they were prepared for rapid departure if necessary. Their clothing and equipment indicated federal rather than local law enforcement. Their behavior was professional but tense, suggesting they were conducting serious business rather than routine administrative work. Most concerning was their apparent focus on gathering information about specific individuals rather than investigating businesses or conducting general inspections. At 10:30, Sheriff Tom Bradley entered Sarah's store with an expression she had never seen before. His usual friendly demeanor was replaced by obvious concern and confusion. He approached the counter where Sarah was processing a lumber order and asked if they could speak privately in her office. His tone was formal and serious, immediately alerting Sarah that something significant was developing. Sheriff Bradley explained that federal agents had arrived in town with a warrant related to a person of interest in a national security matter. They were conducting interviews with local residents and business owners as part of their investigation. The agents had specifically requested information about newer residents who might have military backgrounds or specialized training. They were particularly interested in anyone who had moved to Millbrook within the past decade and maintained low profiles while demonstrating unusual capabilities or knowledge. Sarah listened carefully while maintaining an expression of cooperative concern appropriate for a civic-minded business owner. She asked practical questions about how the investigation might affect her customers and whether the store should remain open during the federal activity. Sheriff Bradley appreciated her practical approach and assured her that normal business could continue, though residents should be prepared for possible interviews if agents requested them. The sheriff's description of the federal agent's interests sent warning signals through Sarah's trained mind. The parameters they had described matched her profile almost exactly: recent arrival, military background, specialized skills, and deliberate maintenance of a low profile. While thousands of veterans lived quietly in small towns across America, the specific combination of factors suggested that someone had provided information pointing investigators toward Millbrook, and possibly toward her specifically. After Sheriff Bradley left, Sarah continued serving customers while analyzing the developing situation. Her military training had included extensive instruction in operational security and the importance of maintaining cover identities during extended assignments. The current situation resembled scenarios she had trained for, though she had hoped never to encounter such circumstances in her civilian life. The federal presence in town continued throughout the morning, with agents conducting interviews at the municipal building and visiting various businesses. Sarah observed their systematic approach to information gathering and noted that they seemed to be working from specific intelligence rather than conducting random investigations. Their questions, as reported by customers who had been interviewed, focused on identifying individuals with particular skill sets rather than investigating general criminal activity. By noon, the federal agents had interviewed approximately 20 townspeople, including several of Sarah's customers. The reports indicated that agents were asking about residents who demonstrated unusual physical fitness, technical knowledge, leadership capabilities, or other characteristics that might indicate military or law enforcement backgrounds. They were particularly interested in people who had moved to town recently and seemed overqualified for their current occupations or who maintained privacy about their backgrounds. Sarah realized that her carefully constructed civilian identity was potentially compromised. Someone with knowledge of her true background had apparently provided information that led federal investigators to Millbrook. The timing and specificity of their inquiries suggested that they possessed detailed intelligence about her location and civilian identity. This represented a serious breach of operational security that threatened not only her peaceful retirement, but potentially the safety of Millbrook's residents. The afternoon brought increasing tension as federal agents expanded their investigation. They had requested access to local records, including business licenses, property ownership documents, and employment histories. Their systematic approach to data collection indicated they were building comprehensive profiles of potential suspects rather than conducting preliminary inquiries. Sarah understood that this level of investigation meant they had strong reasons to believe their target was located in Millbrook. At 2 o'clock, Margaret Chen hurried into Sarah's store with obvious concern. She reported that federal agents had asked her specifically about Sarah's background, arrival in town, and daily activities. They had inquired about Sarah's physical fitness, her knowledge of security matters, and whether she had ever mentioned military service. Margaret had provided honest answers, but was confused about why Sarah had attracted their attention. Sarah thanked Margaret for the information while maintaining her calm demeanor. She explained that former military personnel often attracted government attention for various administrative reasons and suggested that the agents were probably conducting routine background checks related to security clearances or pension matters. Her explanation satisfied Margaret's curiosity while avoiding any indication that the situation was serious or threatening. The federal agent's specific interest in Sarah's background confirmed her assessment that her cover identity had been compromised. The questions they were asking indicated they possessed detailed knowledge about her military service and suspected her true identity. This level of information could only have come from someone with access to classified records or from a former colleague who had betrayed operational security protocols. By mid-afternoon, Sarah had identified at least 6 federal agents operating in Millbrook, more than would be necessary for routine investigations or administrative matters. Their equipment included advanced communication systems, surveillance devices, and what appeared to be tactical gear stored in their vehicles. This level of preparation suggested they were expecting potential resistance or were prepared to conduct enforcement actions rather than simple interviews. The situation escalated at 4 o'clock when two agents entered Sarah's hardware store directly. They identified themselves as Agent Collins and Agent Martinez from a federal task force investigating national security matters. They presented credentials that appeared authentic and requested that Sarah accompany them for questioning related to their investigation. Their approach was professional but firm, indicating that cooperation was expected rather than optional. Sarah responded with appropriate civilian concern and confusion, asking about the nature of their investigation and whether she needed legal representation. Agent Collins explained that they were investigating matters related to national security and that Sarah's background and current activities had raised questions that required clarification. He emphasized that cooperation would be appreciated and would help resolve their concerns quickly. Agent Martinez added that they had information suggesting Sarah possessed knowledge and capabilities relevant to their investigation. They were particularly interested in her military service record and her reasons for relocating to Millbrook. Their questions indicated they suspected her true identity but were seeking confirmation and additional information about her current activities and contacts. Sarah understood that the situation had reached a critical point. The agents' direct approach meant they were confident enough in their intelligence to confront her openly. Their request that she accompany them for questioning suggested they intended to conduct an intensive interrogation designed to confirm her identity and assess her current status and activities. Her response required careful calculation. Refusing to cooperate would confirm their suspicions and likely result in more aggressive investigative actions that could endanger Millbrook's residents. Agreeing to accompany them would provide an opportunity to assess their knowledge and intentions, while potentially protecting the community from further disruption. However, leaving with federal agents would also place her in a controlled environment, where her options would be severely limited. Sarah requested permission to secure her store and arrange for temporary coverage of her business responsibilities. The agents agreed to a brief delay, during which Sarah locked the cash register, secured valuable inventory, and placed a sign indicating temporary closure. These actions appeared to be routine business precautions, but also provided time to assess escape routes and potential strategies for managing the developing crisis. While preparing to leave with the agents, Sarah noticed increased federal activity throughout the town. Additional vehicles had arrived and agents were positioning themselves at key locations, including road exits, the police station, and near her store. This deployment pattern suggested they were preparing for potential enforcement action and were taking precautions to prevent her escape if the interview revealed information requiring her arrest. The systematic nature of the federal operation indicated that Sarah was dealing with a well-planned investigation rather than routine inquiries or administrative matters. Someone with detailed knowledge of her background and location had provided intelligence that resulted in a significant resource commitment for her apprehension. The situation represented the most serious threat to her carefully constructed civilian life, and potentially to the safety of Millbrook's unsuspecting residents. As Sarah prepared to accompany the federal agents, she understood that her 6 years of peaceful retirement were ending. The confrontation she had hoped to avoid was beginning, and the skills she had tried to leave behind would likely be necessary for survival. The quiet life of Sarah Martinez, hardware store owner, was about to collide with the dangerous reality of her true identity as a highly trained former Navy SEAL whose past had finally caught up with her present. The ride to the federal facility took 45 minutes through winding country roads that Sarah had never traveled. Agent Collins drove while Agent Martinez maintained constant communication with their command center through an encrypted radio system. Sarah observed their security protocols and noted the route they were taking, automatically cataloging information that might prove useful if the situation deteriorated further. The agents' conversation revealed that their investigation was part of a larger operation involving multiple jurisdictions and significant resources. The federal facility was located in a converted warehouse complex, surrounded by high-security fences and sophisticated surveillance systems. Sarah recognized the tactical modifications that had been made to the building, including reinforced entry points, strategic lighting, and defensive positions that indicated serious security concerns. The facility appeared to be designed for interrogating high-value targets rather than conducting routine administrative interviews. Inside the building, Sarah was escorted through multiple security checkpoints and biometric scanning systems. The level of security precautions confirmed that the federal agents considered her a significant potential threat despite her 6 years of peaceful civilian life. Her military experience allowed her to recognize the facility's layout and security measures, information she filed away while maintaining her cooperative civilian demeanor. The interrogation room was professionally equipped with recording devices, multiple cameras, and communication systems that allowed supervisors to monitor the proceedings remotely. Agent Collins and Agent Martinez were joined by Agent Thompson, who appeared to be the senior investigator responsible for the operation. Agent Thompson's credentials identified her as a specialist in counterterrorism operations, with extensive experience in investigating former military personnel. Agent Thompson began the interrogation by presenting a file containing photographs and documents that immediately revealed the extent of their knowledge about Sarah's true background. The file included classified mission reports, commendation records, and operational photographs from her 29 years as a Navy SEAL. They possessed detailed information about her specialized training, her combat deployments, and her expertise in areas that few civilians could even comprehend. The confrontation Sarah had been dreading was now fully underway. Agent Thompson explained that their investigation had been triggered by intelligence suggesting that a former Navy SEAL with Sarah's capabilities had been recruited by a hostile foreign intelligence service. They had been tasked with locating and interrogating all former SEALs who matched certain criteria and who had established new identities in isolated communities where they could operate without detection. Sarah listened to their accusations while maintaining her composure and assessing their true objectives. The agents claimed they had evidence suggesting she had been contacted by foreign operatives and had agreed to provide classified information or conduct operations against American interests. They presented intercepted communications and surveillance photographs that appeared to show her meeting with unidentified individuals in locations outside Millbrook. The evidence was sophisticated and carefully prepared, but Sarah's trained eye detected inconsistencies that suggested manipulation or fabrication. The photographs appeared to show her in locations she had never visited, meeting with people she had never encountered. The communications allegedly intercepted from her devices contained information she had never transmitted and references to activity she had never conducted. Someone had created an elaborate false narrative designed to justify her arrest and interrogation. Agent Thompson's questioning became increasingly aggressive as she presented additional fabricated evidence and demanded explanations for activities that Sarah had never performed. The interrogation techniques were designed to break down resistance and force admissions of guilt through psychological pressure and the presentation of seemingly overwhelming evidence. Sarah recognized these methods from her own training in resisting enemy interrogation. The situation became clearer as the interrogation continued. The federal agents were not investigating actual treason or foreign intelligence activities. They were conducting an operation designed to eliminate former military personnel who possessed capabilities that someone considered threatening to current political or operational objectives. The fabricated evidence was intended to justify whatever actions they planned to take once they had obtained her confession or eliminated her as a potential threat. Sarah's analysis of the situation indicated that she was dealing with a rogue operation rather than legitimate federal law enforcement. The agents' methods, their use of fabricated evidence, and their apparent objectives were inconsistent with proper investigative procedures. Someone within the federal intelligence community was using official resources to conduct unauthorized operations against former military personnel who might pose obstacles to their agenda. The interrogation continued for 3 hours, with Agent Thompson alternating between aggressive accusations and offers of cooperation in exchange for confessions. She claimed that Sarah's cooperation could result in reduced charges and relocation to a secure facility where she could live comfortably under supervised conditions. Resistance would result in prosecution for treason and other charges that could carry death sentences. Sarah maintained her position that she had never engaged in any activities against American interests, and that the evidence they presented was fabricated or misidentified. She requested legal representation and demanded to speak with legitimate federal supervisors who could verify the authenticity of the investigation. Her requests were denied, with Agent Thompson claiming that national security concerns prevented normal legal procedures. The turning point came when Agent Thompson revealed information that could only have been obtained through illegal surveillance of Sarah's activities in Millbrook. They possessed detailed records of her daily routines, her conversations with customers, and her personal activities in her private residence. This level of surveillance represented serious violations of her constitutional rights. and confirmed that the operation was not legitimate federal law enforcement. Agent Thompson's final ultimatum was delivered with barely concealed threats of violence. Sarah was informed that she would be transferred to a more secure facility where enhanced interrogation techniques would be used to obtain the cooperation they required. If she continued to resist, measures would be taken to ensure that her silence could not threaten their operation's objectives. The implications were clear. Confession or elimination were her only options. Sarah understood that the situation had reached the point where her survival required immediate action. The rogue federal agents had revealed their intentions to use illegal methods against her, and had essentially threatened her with assassination if she refused to cooperate with their fabricated charges. Her military training and oath of service demanded that she resist illegal operations conducted against American citizens by corrupt government personnel. Her escape plan began with a calculated assessment of the facility's security measures and the agent's tactical positions. During the hours of interrogation, Sarah had mentally mapped the building's layout, identified security weaknesses, and evaluated the capabilities of her captors. Her years of military training in escape and evasion procedures provided strategies for overcoming the sophisticated security systems that surrounded her. The opportunity for action came when Agent Martinez left the interrogation room to retrieve additional fabricated evidence from their command center. Agent Thompson and Agent Collins remained in the room, but had become complacent after hours of what they perceived as successful psychological pressure. Sarah's apparent cooperation had convinced them that she was psychologically defeated and no longer represented a physical threat. Sarah's transformation from cooperative civilian to combat-ready Navy SEAL occurred in seconds. Her first move disabled the room's recording equipment and communication systems, preventing the agents from summoning immediate assistance. Agent Thompson and Agent Collins found themselves confronting someone whose capabilities far exceeded their expectations, and whose determination to resist their illegal operation was absolute. The confrontation that followed demonstrated the difference between federal agents who had attended law enforcement academies and a former Navy SEAL who had survived 9 years of the world's most dangerous military operations. Sarah's combat skills, honed through decades of real-world applications, overwhelmed the agents' resistance within minutes. Their weapons and communication devices were secured, and they were restrained using techniques that ensured their inability to interfere with her escape. Sarah's exit from the federal facility required navigating multiple security systems while avoiding detection by additional personnel stationed throughout the building. Her military training in infiltration and exfiltration provided the skills necessary to overcome electronic surveillance, bypass physical barriers, and neutralize security personnel without causing permanent harm. The operation was completed with the precision and efficiency that had characterized her most challenging military missions. The escape revealed the full extent of the rogue operation's resources. Sarah discovered that the federal facility contained evidence of operations against at least 12 other former military personnel, including detailed surveillance records and fabricated evidence files similar to those prepared for her case. The scope of the illegal activities indicated a systematic effort to eliminate potential obstacles to whatever agenda was driving the operation. Her investigation of the facility's files revealed the identity of the operation's true leadership, a group of former intelligence officials who had been involved in controversial programs during their government service and who now feared exposure by whistleblowers with knowledge of their activities. They were using their connections within the federal intelligence community to conduct elimination operations against former military personnel who might possess information about their past illegal activities. Sarah's discovery of the truth behind her persecution provided both vindication and a new sense of purpose. The peaceful retirement she had sought in Millbrook had been destroyed by corrupt former officials who were willing to murder American veterans to protect their secrets. Her duty as a former Navy SEAL required that she expose their crimes and protect other veterans who might be targeted by similar operations. The return to Millbrook required careful planning to avoid the surveillance networks that the rogue operation had established throughout the region. Sarah used her military training in counter-surveillance techniques to approach the town through forest routes that avoided road checkpoints and electronic monitoring systems. Her objective was to gather evidence of the illegal surveillance activities that had been conducted against her, and to ensure the safety of Millbrook's residents, who might be endangered by continued federal presence. Her arrival in Millbrook after midnight revealed the extent of the ongoing operation against her. Federal agents had established a command post in the town square and were conducting intensive searches of her store and residence. Their activities had awakened many residents, who were confused and frightened by the unprecedented law enforcement presence in their peaceful community. Sarah understood that her neighbors' safety now depended on her ability to resolve the crisis without involving them in dangerous confrontations. The final confrontation occurred at dawn when Agent Thompson and a tactical team surrounded Sarah's hardware store, believing she had returned to collect evidence or personal belongings. Their assumption that a former hardware store owner would be easily captured demonstrated their fundamental misunderstanding of who they were pursuing. The woman they had underestimated was about to demonstrate why Navy SEALs were considered among the world's most formidable warriors. Sarah's defense of Millbrook and its residents utilized every skill she had developed during her military career. The tactical team's equipment and training were impressive by law enforcement standards, but inadequate for confronting someone with her capabilities and determination. The operation she conducted to neutralize the threat and protect her adopted community became a textbook demonstration of how specialized military training could be applied to civilian protection scenarios. The resolution of the crisis came when legitimate federal authorities, alerted by Sarah's evidence and testimony, arrived to investigate the rogue operation that had terrorized Millbrook. The corrupt officials who had authorized illegal activities against former military personnel were arrested, and their victims were vindicated. Sarah's courage in resisting their threats and exposing their crimes protected not only herself, but potentially dozens of other veterans who might have become their targets. Sarah Martinez returned to her quiet life in Millbrook with a deeper appreciation for the community that had welcomed her, and the importance of vigilance in protecting the freedoms that military service was meant to defend. Her hardware store reopened with the gratitude of neighbors who finally understood the true character of the woman who had chosen to live among them. The peaceful retirement she had sought was restored, but with the knowledge that some battles must be fought to preserve the peace that makes civilian life possible.